So what is the language of kings? What does that mean to you? Well, what it means is that there are decision makers that you have to get on board with your idea to move them to action. There are always going to be very critical people that hold high positions that are going to be the yes or no decision for you. Going to be the thumbs down or thumbs up for the idea or your product or your service. Again, it's all about influence as a Christian leader. And what's fascinating is that if you go into the Bible and you look at how different people engaged kings, how they spoke with them, there are clues on how you can talk to the CEO, to the chairman of the board, to the president, to that decision maker that you need to influence the way that you'd like things to go. So look at the story of Joseph and Pharaoh. It's probably the easiest one to see this in. So in Genesis, you're looking in Genesis chapter 41. The background obviously is, if you're familiar with the story, that Joseph grows up a hotshot kid, and he knows he's supposed to do big things, and things don't go his way. He ticks his brothers off. They send him away to a foreign land, actually sell him off into slavery, and a couple of things go his way, and then they turn on him. He works for a high-powered guy, but then he's kind of brought up on false charges. He ends up in jail, and he's down in the pit, in jail, totally forgotten about. And then one day, suddenly happens, one day he gets called up to the CEO's office, to Pharaoh, to the king of Egypt. Now, let's equate this to modern times. Pharaoh is the leader. He's the CEO. He's the chairman of the board. He's the president. And he's got a problem. He's had something that is causing him pain. In Pharaoh's case, he had a dream that he couldn't interpret, but it really bothered him. And none of Pharaoh's wise men, his consultants, if you will, in our modern vernacular, none of his consultants could help him with that. They couldn't give him a solution or help him sort through that. And then one day, while one of his workers, the butler, was watching his boss struggle and be racked with this pain of not being able to sort through this, he remembered an interaction with a slave in prison when he was there for a brief stint, this prisoner Joseph. Joseph had interpreted the butler's dream. The butler had been reappointed back to his position as a worker right underneath Pharaoh. And now the butler says, I got a guy. I've got a guy that seems to be a solutions guy. He seems to understand what to do. He told me exactly a situation that really helped me or helped me understand something. And I've totally forgot about him. Maybe I can find his business card around here somewhere or look up his email. And they call Joseph, and they're going to bring him to go see Pharaoh. Now, one of the things that's interesting to me about the story is it says that Joseph took time to shave and get cleaned up. Now, obviously, he's in prison. He doesn't look too good or smell too good. But read deeper into that one little line and ask yourself, was Joseph just cleaning up, or was he preparing to go and speak with the CEO, the king, the way the king wanted him to speak to him? Was he preparing his appearance to look like what he should look like? You see, so often I find people that they don't dress the part. You know, either they dress wrongly, they dress down, they're too casual when they go to meet with somebody of influence, and that turns the conversation the way it doesn't need to go. They see them as not someone that can help them based upon their outer appearance. I've also seen people deck out because they want to really impress, and they go into a place that's the decision maker is of humble means. I mean, imagine wearing gold cufflinks and a fine tailored suit, a pocket square, and a tie, and selling the owner of a coal mine or the owner of a tire distributor that is maybe used to working with their hands, and certainly the folks that work for them work with their hands. Maybe that's not the right dress, but Joseph pauses and he thinks about his audience, and he thinks, first and foremost, I need to walk in the door looking the way that this decision maker wants someone looking. So that's my first pause to you. When you speak the language of kings, it's not just what comes out of your mouth, it's your appearance. Here's a great phrase. I want you to write it down. Everything says something. Everything says something. The way you dress, the car you drive, the choice of words that you use, where you give your money, where you spend your time. Everything says something. The appearance of this building, everything says something. What does it say? And is your audience appreciating that? Are you speaking their language or not? So the first thing as it relates to language of kings, what is their language? What do they want you to appear like when you come to speak with them? So Joseph walks in and he starts to interpret the dream. Now he doesn't take credit himself. He says, hey, I'm not the guy that can do this, but God can do this. God has given me this skill and talent. So he's putting the focus where it needs to be. But if you go and you look at the interchange, the actual words he uses, he does something that is called you language. It's a skill, it's a technique that you can learn, that you can actually do yourself. It's called you language. And here's what he says basically. Pharaoh, this is a big deal. God's given you two dreams that are actually the same because this is going to happen. He's determined it. And what you should do is you should find someone that can do these types of things, and then you should do this, and then you should do that. This is what Pharaoh should do. Joseph never says, I'm your guy. I can come in here and solve your problem. Looks like you're going to need this. I'm the best man for the job. Now, let me show you this in practical terms. This is an iPhone, a simple iPhone. Okay. If I was to sell you this, if you're the decision maker, the CEO, and I'm trying to influence you to buy one of these, most people, the majority of people out there, say something like this. Well, Mr. Influencer, this is an iPhone, and it can do lots of cool stuff. I mean, you can talk on it, you can text, you can email, you can take pictures, you can do lots of things with this because it has a great deal of functionality. And what that means to someone like you, someone busy like you, is you'll never have to miss your family's most defining moments getting stuck at the office because you've got a device to keep you connected. Okay, that's how everybody talks. This is what this is, or what this idea is. Here's what it can do, all the functions of it, and here's what it means to you. That's not the language of kings. The language of kings sounds like this. Mr. Decision Maker, what if you never had to miss your kids' most defining moments, your family's most memorable moments getting stuck at the office because you had a device that kept you connected through phone and text and pictures? It's called an iPhone. How valuable would that be to you? You see, in that, I never once said I could solve your problem. In fact, I empowered that decision maker to solve their own problem. What if you never had to miss your kids' most defining moments? What if you had a device that could do this? How valuable would that be to you? So my point to you is this. If you look at the interchange between Joseph and Pharaoh, the same thing happens basically between Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar a little bit later on. But these guys, they speak the language of kings. And the language of kings is simply you versus me. I, we. But that's difficult to do. It's not something that comes easily. And what has to happen is you have to obsess on your audience. You have to understand what they need, what their pain is, how you can potentially solve that, and then you have to speak in a way that they understand you understand. That they see you as someone that is a problem solver, and that you empower them by saying things like, what if you could solve this problem? How valuable would it be to you, sir or ma'am? The language of kings is something you can learn. And we go into great detail a little bit later. If you want to go to that, there's more resources for you. But if this is enough right now, just recognize that God has in His Word everything you need for your success. And if you're trying to move decision makers, whoever they may be and whatever their title is or may be, you can speak the language of kings. So, here's to successfully moving people, moving decision makers to the actions they need to move to.